One of the most important parts about working in true crime with missing persons and cold cases is learning from the people in the field. Welcome to a new series by Exhuming the Truth called Exhuming the Truth Presents Field Notes. My name is Asha Carmody. I am a forensic scientist, a criminologist, and a victims advocate. And we get to speak in this series with a range of professionals from across these fields to understand the work, the challenges, and the human side behind it all. I hope you enjoy today's part two of our chat in Field Notes with the president of Search Dogs Sydney, Chris Darcy. Chris was an absolute dream to have a chat with. I personally learnt so much from our conversation, and I know you will too. So please make sure that you can keep up to date by subscribing and following along. And any questions that you have for either myself or Chris, please feel free to leave them here. I hope you enjoy it.
Question that I have to ask you because my 7-year-old made orders. He would like to know what breed of dogs is your breed of choice for training a search dog?
I do not have a preferred breed of choice. The reason being, it comes down to the temperament of the dog. It comes down to the drive of the dog. It comes down to the independence to want to work for the dog. But basically, the most important part is how friendly is that dog? They've got to be a good friend. Because missing persons, we don't know how they're going to react. So they have to be cool and calm under any and all circumstances. Having said that, Rufus isn't a friend of everybody's because of him and I and the way in which we work in some pretty gnarly situations. So he likes to look after me. But yes, when it comes down to our dogs, it comes down to their temperament. They've got to be a really nice, friendly dog and with a great personality because they're dealing with, people that are going through some pretty tough times.
That's interesting. So would you prefer to, select a dog that's a bit younger to start training, or would you do any age dog when you're kind of picking your next one?
We pick them usually between the ages of 12 months and 2.5 to 3 years of age.
Wow.
And well, look, there's lots of reasons for that. That's because of the fact that we like our dogs to come and be at least a little bit mature when it comes to their bodies, because we don't like to really start them training until they're 18 months of age, because their bones and their joints and their bodies are still forming when they're at a young age. So because we're looking at having a long career from the dog and it takes 18 months to 2 years to train them, we like those dogs to be well started already. When it comes to the dogs, it's usually a lot of our dogs are rescue dogs, so we don't have a breeding program. My boy came from a pound up in a rescue organisation up near Cessnock. We've gotten dogs from right across a lot of different organisations and that's what makes a search and rescue dog. For example, our number one dog, and the reason that we're here today, Boof, was put up for adoption because his owner had come home to find that his motorbike had been chewed to pieces. Now, when I say chewed to pieces, he had demolished the tyres to the size of confetti. He turned any soft metal into flat metal, but he had shown dedication all day at destroying that motorbike, and there was not an owner in sight that told him to do that. But that dedication is what made him a great search and rescue dog, because within 3 months of getting some training and understanding what his drive was, he would work all day looking for a missing person in any environment, because that's just the type of dog that he was, that really did outperform a lot of others. So, yes, it comes down to, generally we say to our handlers that are looking at getting a dog, how far, if your dog was injured 2 kilometres into the bush, would you like to carry back home again? So a big 30, 40 kilogram dog is not going to be light to carry back out from the bush. But at the same time, you need to be able to cover that ground. So we usually use the medium-sized working dogs, so the Shepherd Kelpies, the Belgian Malamars, the kind Belgian Malamars. We generally don't use many German Shepherds, simply because of over the years there's been some hip dysplasia problems over the time. So unfortunately, they haven't had long careers and had to be medically retired from other organisations that we've seen. So But we generally use most of the mid-sized dogs, the ones that have got a good nose on them, not the pugs or any of that sort of thing, and the ones with sort of that are able to quite easily jump up and over 1.2 meters in height.
Awesome. That's so interesting. I love that you can take a rescue dog that, they've, put him up for adoption because he's destroyed something, but that's actually potential in him for another career. So that's so
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, and it comes down to, yes, it's great, but at the same time, you've just got to learn to be able to deal with some of that baggage.
And do you train the dogs yourself, or do you have like a training program, or what's the process with their
We have a
training?
training program where our search technicians that do decide to become dog handlers do train their own dogs. They live with their own dogs, so they do become part of the family. Because a lot of what we do as a search and rescue dog technician is about reading your dog. None of us Dr. Doolittle, so we do need to make sure that we at least have a good working relationship with the dog to tell us when they're working, when they're not working, when they're tired, when they found something that they do know they will bark at us. But there's also times where the dogs do have that little bit of not sure, I found something, but I'm not sure exactly what it is that it is, but I need to tell you so that you'll take notice. And that's also a very important aspect of what we do is reading the dog's body language.
Wow, there's a lot to it. It's a bit of behavioral psychology in a way, isn't it? Kind of reading your dog and knowing your dog
Uh,
better than anyone else.
And that's exactly the same way in which we talk to families of missing persons, because of the fact that a family of missing persons knows that missing person better than anybody. And it doesn't matter what you do, you've got to listen to those families.
Absolutely. So my next big question is one of my own, because I always wonder, you said that the dogs have kind of two avenues, like a active live missing person or maybe somebody that might be deceased. And if you're getting called up for, say, a cold case of a missing person that hasn't been found, how long into like the degradation time would your dog still be able to potentially detect human remains?
At the moment, our dogs could probably detect up to 100 years.
Wow.
Now, the reason for that being is we use a lot of our training from our sister group over in the US, and their learnings come from looking and searching for Civil War graves.
Wow.
Now, we all know when the Civil War was on, and teams over there are still out there searching for Civil War graves to exhume their bodies and, put them to rest where they deserve to be. And that's where we're utilising that training, we're utilising that learnings to bring them over here to our dogs, and that is ideal for searching for the long-term missing persons. As an example of where our training comes from, back in 2019, 2020 during the bushfires, my sister unit rang me up and said, "How are you going with the fires? How is it affecting your long-term missing persons? And how are you training the dogs to work through that environment? Like it's all going to be burnt, but you're still going to have to get out there and work." And I was honest with him, and I said, "Look, I honestly don't know." And he's in his Kentucky accent. He turned around to me and he said, "Leave it to me." And 7 days later, he rang me back and he said, "Listen, we've managed to get the coroner on board. We've managed to get the fire department on board. We've managed to get a few other experts on board. And we had a donation of some human remains, and we had the fire department investigate what our bushfires were burning at currently here on the east coast of the country. And we replicated those conditions as best as possible. And we then got our dogs and put them through and worked out what we needed to get them trained onto those human remains. And within 3 days of that phone call, we had our dogs ready to go for the 2019-20 bushfires.
Wow.
Now, had I have been trying to do that through a government organisation here in Australia, I would still be trying to do that. The ethics involved would be ridiculous, but it's by going outside of the bounds that we're able to actually train our dogs to be ready for any environment, for any situation. And in actual fact, we got that phone call from a friend in America for somebody that had gone missing in the bushfires. And that particular person had left their vehicle at their front gate throughout the fires and tried to get back to their house. Sadly, they were found deceased halfway back to the property. But that's where we needed to make sure that our dogs were ready for that situation at a moment's notice.
Wow, that's incredible. And like what an invaluable partnership that is, because like you said, the red tape here in things like that compared to over there, like to have that done in 7 days, that's unheard of, for something over here. And that's something that you guys are obviously going to use and carry. We have a lot of fires in our country, so that's incredible.
Yeah, and look, that same training, that same information became invaluable to us in 2023 when we had a major building fire in Surrey Hills in the centre of Sydney.
Yeah.
And that caused 3 buildings to end up being demolished. However, what had occurred was there was 2 homeless people still potentially missing in that area. And one of the only few times that the State Crime Command reached out to me because they were told by their own dog squad that their dogs weren't trained for those environments or weren't available to work those environments. But that's where Rufus had been heavily exposed to those environments and was ready to go to assist in searching that area.
Oh, what a good boy. What breed is Rufus?
Rufus is a Malamar cross. I'm not sure what he's crossed with, but it's the right temperament and it's the right fit for us. And we've been working together for about 8.5 years now and covered, I don't know how many thousand kilometres together, and we do some really good work.
Wow, good on him. How cute. That's so sweet. Have you had another dog before him if you've been doing it a bit longer, or was Rufus the first one that for you?
No, look, ultimately, our life changed in 2014. We were deployed to our first urban search and rescue. At that time, I was just a search technician. I wasn't a dog handler. And that's when we realised that we didn't have what's called an ASR5 dog here in the country. We didn't have a cadaver dog, a human remains detection dog, that could detect and find deceased people in disasters. We were completely reliant on humans and on technology to search those environments. And that's where, when we were deployed to the Roselle building collapse in 2014, that's what changed the trajectory for me and my training to then start focusing on human remains and cadaver work because there was a distinct lack of that capability here in Australia at that time. And to this day, I can tell you there still is a distinct lack of services available, primarily through the government. I mean, there's quite a few organisations in South Australia, in WA, in Tasmania that have got the dogs available, ready to go for law enforcement, but law enforcement is not wanting to take them up on the option.
Right. So you're having to be independent, like forcefully, essentially, because there's no other avenue.
No, there's no other avenue. And unfortunately, when we look at the law enforcement in the 7 states and territories of Australia, there's only 2 police forces that have actually got a cadaver dog capability.
Wow.
That being New South Wales and Queensland. However, when we look at those in a little bit more detail, we find that their dogs aren't a specialised resource. Here in New South Wales, a cadaver dog is also trained as a drug dog. A dog may also be trained as a cash dog. It comes down to they don't have a single purpose, but that is affecting the families, and that doesn't provide the families with the support that they need, and that really does affect the results that we're getting, and hence why the New South Wales Police were just recently sued for, I believe it was $200 million.
Wow.
For illegal searching by their dogs.
Interesting. Wow. That's insane. That's absolutely that's insane. I have never been, I feel like, in another country over here in WA. We don't hear of that sort of thing. And I know that we have a small group that do searches. I'm unsure of, I've only just learnt from you that, they can do one or the other. And, I don't know exactly what they do, but Rufus, you said, he does deceased remains. Is that right?
That's correct. So we like to try and break human remains when it comes to the dogs up into 7 different stages.
Yep.
The first stage being an initial deceased, where it is a cadaver.
Mhm.
the technical term being cadaver. But Rufus doesn't generally look for those because he is trained to look for the long term. So he does stages 2 through till 7, including cremated remains.
Wow. That's crazy. So for your dogs that, are part of Search Dogs Sydney that are looking for live people, for example, what's that sort of time frame that somebody would call you to look for a missing person that they believe to be still alive? Is that something pretty quickly they get in contact with you and say, "Hey, can you please help us?"
Usually we get the call within 48 hours to 72 hours from the family once they start to realise that law enforcement may be struggling with trying to locate their remains, their loved one. But usually that's because of the fact that they're also aware of the other services that we offer, such as we're one of only, we've got 4 lost persons behaviour instructors. We're the only 4 instructors outside of the Australian Federal Police. So we're able to utilise all of that to with our dogs to go out and find somebody. So usually it's 2 to 3 days that we'll get the call. By that stage, somebody is generally still alive. There's a really strong hope that people have lived for 2, 3, 4 weeks after they've gone missing, with a lot of different results. So we generally deploy our dogs as quickly as possible, and because they're what's called air scent area search dogs, it means they're able to go out and search the environment and cover a lot of ground very, very quickly. So it's not like what you see in television, where we get a dirty pair of socks or undies and stick it under the dog's nose and say, "Go find them, Rex," and then we hold on to the lead for grim life. Because of their urban search and rescue training, they're trained to find any human scent within the environment. So they're let off the lead, they'll go and do their own thing, and then they will then tell us when they found somebody. So they can be working, between 50 and 400 meters away from us at any one time.
Wow. That's impressive. That's like people will be genuinely shocked, I think, because like you said, I talk a lot with a couple of other specialists in different areas about that CSI effect and people kind of looking at forensics, which is what I specialize in, and being like, "Oh, this is how it is," because it's like that on
Yep.
TV, and it's just not. So it's interesting to learn that that kind of spans across search and rescue dogs as well.
Yeah, there is a lot of misinformation out there about search dogs, and specifically search and rescue dogs, because we're all taught to believe that the police have got that capability,
Yeah.
when in actual fact that's not 100% true. Our police dogs are trained to search for and apprehend a fleeing suspect, a criminal, and apprehend being the primary word. That's not something we want for a mental health patient. That's not something we want for an Alzheimer's or dementia patient. It's definitely not something we want for somebody that may not speak English or understand or even like dogs. There's a lot of nationalities here in multicultural Australia that don't even like dogs, that can't pat dogs, and we have to respect that. But that's where our dogs will be kind enough to just bark at you and maybe slobber over you, but tell us we found you. Because we don't want to repeat what occurred here in New South Wales not that long ago, where a man had left a hospital who was getting treatment at the time. And about midnight that night, he was seen wandering the freeway naked. So there's 2 possible red flags that we've got a mental health issue.
Mhm.
A police dog was fairly close and responded, and thankfully the man was located. And I say that with great trepidation because of the fact that this man then spent 7 weeks in hospital suffering from wounds inflicted by the dog. But not only did the missing person get apprehended by the dog handler themselves was actually suffered facial injuries.
Wow.
Now, these are the dogs that we're getting told are deploying to our missing loved ones. But a lot of the time, those dogs are simply turning up on the job, but not actually getting out of the vehicle. Because even the officers themselves know that their dogs aren't trained for those situations. And we need to myth bust a lot of that,
Yeah.
because our police dogs are great at apprehending criminals. And I'm not going to back down from that. They are second to none at apprehending criminals. And that's where they need to focus their resources and their efforts. But missing person, sending a dog on a missing person search is completely different and needs to be a completely different dog to what those of apprehend a criminal.
Yeah, and I guess it's something that no one would be thinking about until they're having the conversation. I mean, if you had a little kid that was missing, even, I guess that's where the temperament is so important and the training is so important that you guys are doing that no one else is really doing. And that's why you guys are so important. I also wonder how, you guys are so specialized in what you're doing and you have the drones and things like that. And like you said, the lost behavior specialist. How would people get in contact with you? Like, how would they know that, you're a person that they can get a hold of at a time like that if they had any active case?
Look, they can get to us via our website, searchdogsydney.org, where my phone number is quite clear. They can also get to us via social media if need be. But look, we had a recent case just 2 nights ago where a man had gone missing, and strangely enough, just 7 days beforehand, we had gone to the Epping Library, and this man was in part of the group that we were speaking to about Search Dog Sydney and missing persons. And just a week later, he was reported missing. The dementia had actually kicked in and escalated in that period, and he'd simply gone to the shops and was seen at lunchtime entering the shops, but then didn't drive out of the car park until midnight that night, and was later found 48 hours later across the other side of Sydney.
Wow.
But this was through a public talk. So we do a lot of Probus talks, a lot of Rotary talks. We even get out to a lot of retired and former police associations to speak with them about who we are and what we do, because there's many police out there that have just got that one case that they've been working on. One of those being the Doherty case down in the South Coast, where Jeff Dakers, we've connected with him, and it's a case that he was actually the first reporting officer on more than 40 years ago.
Wow.
Because he was the first reporting officer, that's that one case throughout his entire career that was unresolved. And now we're working together to get access to where we need to search and to do things about changing, what he's been dealing with for the last 40 plus years. So it affects not only the families of missing persons, but the police officers that have also had to have that go home at night and have that case that just doesn't leave their mind, the ones that they want to resolve as well.
Yeah, it's so hard, especially when you work, like we certainly work very closely with families. And we had an interview recently with ABC, asking, oh, how does it feel, when a case closes or you bring someone closure, kind of waiting for us to be like, oh, yeah, it's great. But actually, it's never really great, is it? Because it's never a good result. You don't want to be meeting that family in the first place. You don't want to have people going through that. And it's really difficult for everyone. And I imagine exactly the same with you. I'd posted, we were going to be chatting with you, and I had an influx of messages of clients that I work with being like, I've worked with Chris, he's amazing. Like he did so much for us. And in particular, I wanted to bring up Damien Dickey.
Yes,
Yes.
Damien. Yes, we like Damien.
Yes, and he said that you've done some like really incredible work. That story in itself is just incredibly sad. And so did you were involved in one of the cases or two?
We've been involved in one because the other one was still before the courts at that time.
Yeah.
However, based on what's gone on, we're hoping to re-look at that in the coming time. But it's all about, we work with these families for the long haul, where once we're involved with a case, whilst it might have seemed that we've gone quiet, it's just that we're finding other alternatives. We're looking for other ways that we can continue to do what we need to do. And sadly, a lot of our problem comes down to, and as you're fully aware, is the funding. When we take our dogs, we do have what's called a search season. And that's usually the cooler winter months. So from now until July, or August or September is when we do it. In actual fact, I noticed you guys were going to South Australia for the talk. But that's peak season for us when it comes to searching, and we try and maximize our time and weather for the dogs to be able to get out there. So that's where, we continue to work with these families and trying to resolve them. So, We've got over 100 families on our books as we speak. And whilst we've only been able to resolve a small number of those, the rest of them, it's just slowly but surely and being methodically and trying to work through those search areas one step at a time. So we'll be heading north in a few months' time. That hopefully we can work on 3 or 4 different cases while we're up there, to at least start to cover some areas where the resources haven't previously been allocated.
Have you guys, I know, am I correct in saying that you will be going up and having a look at Jack McLennan's case?
We're in early talks for looking for Jack, but there's a
That'd be
strong
great.
possibility that we'll be up there definitely to look for him. We'll be in the area around about that time, let's put it that way.
Yeah, that would be great because, yeah, Kelly was, I mean, I've had so much overseas opportunities for years and working, but when I started in Australia, everyone's like, who the hell is she? And Kelly was the first one who was like, okay, I trust you. Here's everything. Please help me. And they're just such a lovely family. And it's so sad, like you would experience all these families are just everyday people who don't know, like no one expects to have a missing loved one or or knows any procedure or what to do or what they're entitled to, and all of these things that they're learning and they shouldn't be learning on their own. And like you said, having clients in an industry like this is very different because you are in it for the long haul and you don't know how long that's going to be. But you framed it perfectly by saying, you go quiet, but you're still there and you're still on it, and at any point in time you're still there to help that family. And I noticed while I was having a look on your website that you guys are also a registered charity. So are you guys doing any fundraising? You just take general donations as well? What's the go? How are we able to help you guys with funding?
Yeah, look, we're a registered charity, so we have been since for the last 10 years. All of our money goes towards searching. We utilize a lot of technology with what we do, but mainly it's utilized to cover, one, our technology and our insurances, but also when we we try and get away once a year to do a major case. So we're fundraising throughout the year to do a major case, which is generally allows us, and sadly it's been in Queensland, but if it's far north in New South Wales or used to be down the south coast, we try and get away to do one major case where we can focus on it and spend a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks focusing on those sorts of cases. So we do, Bunnings fundraisers, sausage sizzles. We attend the Blacktown show on a regular event every year, where we do demonstrations for the dogs. We go out and we do a lot of probus talks, a lot of group public speaking. I do a lot of public speaking to a lot of these groups because a lot of these groups that we do actually talk to are in the high-risk, vulnerable areas where it's their friends, it's their neighbours, it's the people that are in the nursing homes, etc., that could potentially wander away, and that allows them direct contact to know that we're there. But fundraising for us takes many forms. It takes up a lot of our time to do that, and it's certainly something we don't like doing. We're not very good at it. Hence why we've got the parliamentary inquiry, hence why we're trying to get proper funding, because we're not entitled to a lot of grants at the moment, because the New South Wales Police don't recognise our organisation. Sadly, they have deemed us not feasible, in the exact words of the New South Wales Police. So hopefully that will change throughout the inquiry and we can get some funding that will allow us to continue to do what we do to get there. But yes, all of our funds just simply pays for the costs associated with search. And that does add up when you've got to travel vast distances.
And you're also traveling with animals and that cost.
Yeah. It's not like you can just stop at the local motel when you've got a 6-berth dog trailer in the back. I remember stopping in Maryborough in Queensland on the way home one trip and just pulling up at the motel, and we'd rung up an hour beforehand when we were out of town and said, "Oh, we need a room for the night. We've got a dog trailer." And they said yes. So then we went and checked in, and I said, "Well, where can I park?" And the dogs will be staying in their dog trailer. Well, they kicked us out of the motel.
Oh,
because the dogs weren't allowed to live in their own home, even though it's air conditioned and that's where their preferred thing is. It comes down to traveling with dogs is very difficult,
very.
especially 3 high drive search and rescue dogs. Um, so we've got to do our logistics very, very carefully to make sure that everything's fine. So, but we always carry a tent in there just in case.
Oh, oh no. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be doing that in the winter time. I suppose you probably have done that.
Yeah, we've done that a few times. Had our tent pals blown over a few times. I remember we were on a search down the south coast, and we're actually in the boat with one of the dogs, and suddenly a big storm came through of a windstorm that was, and the campgrounds rang us to say that our tents had all been blown over, and so then we all scrambled together and managed to find an Airbnb, and I think there were 6 of us, and 4 dogs or 5 dogs are all tucked up into one little 1-bedroom apartment for the night, where it was ice and it felt like it was coming straight from Mount Kosciuszko.
Well, you got to laugh, don't you? Because otherwise, we'll all be in tears. But I was wondering too, your career before involving dogs, what was the title of that role?
I was a urban search and rescue canine search specialist with the New South Wales SES, and we provided dog teams to the Urban Search and Rescue Task Force. So here in Australia, there are 2 federally funded task forces, the one in New South Wales and one in Queensland. And it was our job to provide the dogs to be available on standby for fire and rescue. And politics came into play, and at 2016 they decided to shut the unit down, and that's why we opened up Search Dog Sydney, because we realised that as former members of the SES, there wasn't the dog capability here in New South Wales at the time, and that's where we did provide that, because we had the dogs, we had the training, we had the experience, but it was about trying to educate the emergency services that, hey, there's better ways to be doing our searches than what we're currently doing. And since then, we've led the way with introducing technology, with introducing a lot of things, and we try and make sure that we're at the forefront of doing what we're doing so that we can, maximize the time that it takes to locate somebody, simply because we understand that when somebody goes missing, the faster we can get them home, the less it's going to be on our medical system, the less it's going to be on the families that are involved. And that is a cost saving to us as a community. Look, we were able to locate a man that was missing for 3.5 hours, and that was in 30 minutes of getting the phone call because of our training. But this man was still affected by it for about 2 to 3 days after that, even though he was only missing for a matter of hours. And that's where we need to make sure that we do this as quickly as possible. We need to prioritize our missing and not just put them as an extra to our law enforcement at the moment.
I'm really glad you said that, because I recently had it was a talk at an event. I had submitted and I was really happy with it, stoked. Been working on missing persons for so long that I actually did an internship in India about this, and I had the idea of like reframing missing persons as a healthcare crisis, because it does absolutely affect healthcare. It affects the everyday people. It doesn't matter what walk of life you're from. Anybody anywhere can go missing, and it does affect all of these systems. But my speech was rejected because they obviously just didn't have the background knowledge in seeing how this is a ripple effect, and it absolutely does affect things like healthcare and access to things. It's just like absolutely unreal that it is taking a group of people like us who are essentially volunteering time to be like, hello, please listen, this is actually really important, and we can actually make a really big difference if you just take on what we're saying. And the fact that at the start of our chat, like you said, I tried to look for these statistics and they're not even there.
No.
What does that say about, our position in this country? Like, we're not taking it seriously.
Like I run a charity, so I'm expected to account for every single dollar and tell you where this dollar went, where that dollar went. However, when it comes to missing persons here in New South Wales, they can't tell me how many were found alive, how many were found deceased. how many were found here, there, or what are local area commands? So how do we put the right resources into our missing persons if we don't know where they're going missing from, or how they're being found, or who's finding them, or the areas in which they're being located? Now, without proper statistics, we're not going to be able to provide resources to that. And sadly, the shortage of police resources here in New South Wales has had an effect on a current missing persons case. Now, it took the police 5 days to locate a man on the CCTV footage.
No.
And that was because the footage was given to a specialist who had a look at it and realized that the initial detectives, because they were so rushed at trying to get through their job, to get so many tasks done, because there were so many competing priorities, missed that footage. So that meant that the SES, the RFS, the other organisations involved in the search were searching in the wrong area for 3 days.
That's unreal.
Now that to me, that one little decision is a life and death decision that affects, the potential outcomes of this search. Whereas if they weren't as rushed, if they weren't as short-staffed, but the sad thing is we've actually got and designed the technology that could have avoided all of that. And we've had that for quite some time, but we're hoping that we can announce that in the parliamentary inquiry as part of the recommendations to save thousands of hours of police or any person's manpower to search all of this footage and to get it right.
Yeah, and they talk a lot about, being under-resourced and things like that. And there's these things like, you're proposing that they're kind of just sweeping under the rug when this actually affects them and their resources and their time. And like you said, if one person goes missing, it affects the search for that person, but also the family of that person, the community. Like it just never ends, that ripple effect.
That's exactly right. Like the funny thing is they'll issue a geo-targeted text message, or they'll issue a social media plea asking you for help in locating this particular missing person. But when an organisation like mine, who has the specialist resources to help locate that missing person, offers assistance, the answer is, "Oh no, we're right."
That's so disappointing.
But it's the way it is at the moment. So hence why we've got the parliamentary inquiry, and hopefully a lot of answers can come out, because unfortunately we've had to just document all of our families of missing persons to get them to understand that, hey, it's not just isolated to one particular case. It's a systemic problem.
100%. And this is like you're essentially having to create your own statistics because there is none anywhere. And I think it's a strategic way, because if there were and it was in front of them, it's so black and white. Like the amount, like I said earlier, my husband being like, "Oh, are you sure there's going to be enough work for you to quit your job and do this?" I was like, "Cam, just give me 2 weeks. You'll see how many people need help." Like it's unreal.
Look, I noticed on television just as last night, there was an ad telling us what the national road toll is. Now, I know for a fact here in New South Wales, last year, more people died from being reported missing than were killed on the road toll.
Wow, that is,
More than 500 people died after being reported missing here in New South Wales, and there was 370 people killed on the roads.
oh my goodness.
That's just one of the many statistics that we need to stop and take notice of and go, hey, we have got a major problem on our hands.
Yeah, major. And like I think it takes a special kind of person to persist through the work that you do, because you are literally blatant help to the system and you're getting knocked back, but you're still doing that. Can I ask what your working relationship is like doing what you do with the SES?
SES don't want to know about us. We had an imitation search dog group start up in 2022 with another rescue organisation here in New South Wales that was originally supposed to have been done by our organisation, but we refused to pay the $55,000 a year that they wanted to charge us. So they went and started one up. However, they're not getting utilised by the police. We had a family who we recommended contact the search commander and go, look, these people, these dogs are available. Go and use them. The police turned around and said, no, we're not going to. We had a search recently, just a couple of weeks ago, where the organisation turned up, but the dogs should have been used, but they weren't. So the resources are partially there, but they're not getting utilised. So that tells me that it's a bigger problem than what we're just making it out to be. And the questions do need to be asked.
Yeah,
And
100%.
they will be getting asked because, I'm not going to rest until we have this in the light of day.
Well, I think you're going to have a lot of support behind you. You certainly got our support. I was like stoked to read that you were pushing for this inquiry because, like you said just before, it's 100% at a systemic level at this point. It's not, these smaller institutions or, XYZ. It's at the highest level in this country, and it's just blatantly ignored. And there's so many families that feel like, well, why don't we deserve the help from, you grow up learning things in school. Like my kids at the moment, they had police go in and be like, who do you call if you need help? Like,
Yep.
call the police. And I'm just like laughing because I'm like, well, not if you go missing, or because
That's the exact response that I give every time I hear something. That's fine. As long as you're committing a criminal offence, the police will be there.
yeah, absolutely, like they're actually
But
not.
missing persons is not a crime.
Yes, and it's also, yeah, the lack of urgency there, I guess, until it's a personal experience for one of them that they might be like, oh, okay, we really need to pay attention. But even then, I don't think that they would look beyond their own situation and look at all these cases, and particularly the number of cold cases that we have that are just stagnant.
Yeah, look, I got called out on Christmas Day last year. And
Wow.
when the family rang me, they advised me that on the 21st of December, they were told by the New South Wales Police that they could get a dog there, but it'd take them 10 days.
Oh my God.
They couldn't get a dog there until the 29th of December from Sydney, when it's a 2-hour trip, 3-hour trip.
No,
That's what they're telling families.
that's heartbreaking.
And that is not on. I mean, that's because these agencies are getting away with it. It's because there is a distinct lack of oversight. I mean, who questions our law enforcement about how things happen when we shouldn't be needing to question them because of the fact that they have been offered the services? And it's not the boots on the ground. I really feel sorry for the boots on the ground general duties police that are thrown in the deep end. This is the police executive that have been receiving emails from me. This is local area commanders that are in charge of the local area that are refusing point blank to utilise these resources. And I know these resources are available to them right across the country, except for Queensland too much. They're not really available in Queensland. But for pretty much every other state and territory, law enforcement has the ability to contact volunteer organisations just like ours, but they choose not to.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it's certainly, the boots on the ground cops certainly cop it.
Yep.
But it is higher. It's the orders that they're given by the people who actually might have the ability to make the change that just are ignorant to wanting to make change, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I was speaking to one police force and I asked them about a certain program that we utilise for our searches. And he turned around to me and said, it's because we don't have the budget for it. I'm a small charity with a very small budget, but I can afford to have the best in the best mapping system. And yet one of these police forces can't utilise it because of the fact that it's not in their budget. And we're
No.
talking about small change.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And that's basically what you're responded with from them?
Yeah, that was the exact answer when I said, are you utilising this particular program? And he said, oh, we were, but I can't keep it because we don't have the budget.
That's so ridiculous.
But really, this is a program that we've been using for 6 or 7 years now. I think we were one of the first in Australia to have it, because it is so good, and we've been developing it ever since. But here we are. We've got our law enforcement compadres that just are limited with what they can do.
Do you feel like all of your contact with them has been a dead end?
Yes, yes. For the most part, I do have some officers that I am friendly with. That whilst they can't recommend and utilise our services, they might happen to drop my business card to let the families know, because they know what we are capable of. But for the most part, they're stuck, and I really feel for the officers, because the young ones are trying to get a career and they want to get their boot in the ground, and then you've got the others that are in the middle of the pack that might want to get another promotion, or now into it for a career, and their
Yeah.
families depend on them having that job, and they love that job. So I do respect that, but at the same time, the standard you walk past is the standard you accept.
Yeah.
And if you know that there's problems, and you're not actively trying to do something about it for fear of recrimination on your position and your job, you're part of the problem as well. And
Absolutely. I think
that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And look, I've lost a lot of friends in the canine community by speaking out against police dogs,
yeah.
because police dogs are not trained for urban search and rescue. Police dogs are not trained for missing person searches. Police dogs are trained to apprehend criminals. They are trained to locate drugs and weapons. That's what they are good at, and they are very, very good at it. They've been practicing that for 50, 70, 80 years. But when it comes to missing persons, they are not. And by calling that out, I've lost a lot of friends within the community, because I strongly believe in the standard you walk past is the standard you accept.
Absolutely.
Hence why we've got the parliamentary inquiry, hence why we've been collecting the evidence for the last 15 years to present to the inquiry to go, listen, we can do it better. Here's the legislation that is going to help us do it better. Here's the business case to help us do it better. And here is ready to go, boots on the ground, trained up people that are ready, that can start tomorrow. Oh, and by the way, here's where your pot of money is coming from to fund it.
Well, I don't think like I can relate to that, calling a spade being offensive to some people. But like you said, they are trained for XYZ and that's what they're good at. And you guys are trained for this, and this is what you're good at. It's really not that gray. It's very black and white. In my, fundamentally, I think being accountable and having integrity and being able to say to people that you know and respect, well, this is what it is. I think that's a big thing. And I know that people tend to walk away from it because they might think it's a bit controversial, but actually it's not really, because what you're suggesting is actually helpful. It's actually, you're not taking away from what they're doing, you're adding to it.
Yes.
And I think anybody with any sense can see that. I think it's a real problem, and it's a problem that it's not going to, be fixed, but it's definitely going to be exponentially better with the services that you're offering. And no one's saying like, oh, we do this and therefore we're better than you. It's like, we work together. Like, you do this, I do this, and together we are eliminating the number of long-term missing persons. And why would you not want to do that?
It's about working together, and that's where we can't work together at the moment. One of the current cases that we're on, I have given them a QR code and shared all of my maps of where we've searched to the police, but I cannot get in response a QR code back so that I can see where they've done and not double up on the resources.
Yes.
So you try and be an open book. You try and provide them with the information to assist them so that they can see what's being done. And it was funny because one of the searches we did on October last year, the family rang me the other night, and apparently the police officer had said to them, the detective, he said, why are they searching over there? Why are they wasting their time searching over there? And it's like, well, that's where lost person's behaviour could have put him, potentially. but that also was probably an area that we'd search just to make sure that that area had been covered and cleared, because a lot of the time, missing persons are found just outside the search area or adjacent to the search area, or somebody's failed to actually look into a certain particular spot. And that's where we're finding that needs to happen. Like this case up in far north Queensland, we found the person within 82 metres of where the other person was located.
It's ridiculous. But the importance of, we say it a little bit differently when we're looking for forensic evidence, but the importance of no evidence being evidence, and like somebody that's missing not being in an area and that area being searched, is
Yep.
significant in a missing person search. Like you need to cross certain places off to be able to get closer to where you need to be. It's very important.
Exactly. Exactly. So a lot, yeah, a lot of what we find is nothing, but nothing for us is important data.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And my last question before I let you go, because I know it's late, we always like to end off with our signature question. So I'm going to ask you, what has been the hardest truth your work has taught you? And I think I know the general answer to that, but go ahead.
I'm not sure how I could really answer that, because
Or even just the hardest lesson, I guess, because you've been doing this for so long, that you will have experienced a lot of barriers. So aside from outside of the one we've been talking about with the police, what kind
I,
of barriers, what are there?
I suppose something that I always make sure I do now is, because I've learnt to trust my dog, and trust my dog implicitly, but always make sure it is searched thoroughly and go back. And because I've had plenty of cases where people have said, "Oh, that area's been done," but how well was it done? How well was it searched? And we've gone back in there and we've actually located the person.
Wow. So you would like go over the same area a number of times, like to be 100%?
If somebody tells me something's been searched, unless it's been done by my team, I
You
don't
do.
trust it.
That's good.
Uh,
That's thorough.
so even though we don't get, and we've learnt that because of the lack of getting police maps, but we've also learnt that from, people have been found, even though I know of an area that was searched 5 times by emergency services, and
Yeah.
4 months later, the person was located within that search area. I know of a search that I actually told the police where this particular person should have been located. And during this search, we watched Polair do their thing, and we watched the SES go through there. And the very next day, the man was located in that exact area. And I hate to say it, but I actually trained one of those SES members when he was in the SES, when I
Right.
was in the SES. So I was able to ask him personally, how did you miss him? How did you miss that person? And the answer I got was just human nature. Oh, it's too thick for me to go in there, so I won't go in. It's about, we don't train our personnel enough. We have a distinct lack of training when it comes to our missing persons. We rely on what we've been taught and a lot of myths that are still out there, and hopefully we can do some myth busting within this parliamentary inquiry, because even our politicians are falling for the myths.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah, when it comes to the hard truths, and what it's taught me is to check everything and
Right, that's
trust
so
your dog.
interesting. How early on do you think that started clocking to you? You were like, right, we need to, someone's told me that they've looked here, we're doing it ourselves anyway.
Um, Pretty much we knew that from the minute we started Search Dog Sydney back in 2016. But when it came to trust your dog, I remember having an American in about 2013 or 2014 in a trip to Victoria that said, trust your dog. And he drummed that into me. And we can only trust our dog if we trust our training as well.
Yeah.
Um, so that now we make sure that we push our training to the umpteenth degree, so that we can trust our dogs out in the field. So if they're trying to tell us something, damn sight better listen to them.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me. Sorry about the technology issues,
That's
but
all.
it's been really great to, I mean, I was already aware of what I thought I was aware of what you guys did, which I already thought was amazing. I am a huge fan of what you do and a huge animal lover. So I was so interested to learn a bit more about that, but to hear the extent of not just like the work you do, yes, but the barriers as well, and how far we really do have to go to, you know, push this and get people the help that they rightly deserve. It's very eye-opening, and I know a lot of people are going to listen and be equally as disappointed, I think, to hear, you know, how tough it really is for so many people.
Yeah, look, it's not. I don't want people to be disappointed. I want them to just be aware that we do have an issue, but we are doing the best we can to make it better. Um, we need to change things. We can't just talk on social media and make changes. We actually do need to lobby our politicians. We do need to change laws. We do need to make some real systemic changes to the way missing persons are currently managed here in Australia. And I say Australia because it's not just a New South Wales problem. It's not just a Western Australian problem. It is a problem that we have across the country. And if we provide that little bit more resource to our missing persons and our missing loved ones, we're going to save in a lot of other ways as well. And that's where we can make those systemic changes by doing these political things. Like I've been to Parliament House 12 times this year already.
Oh my goodness.
You know, it's ridiculous the amount of times that I've been in there. However, what I've now got is I can ring up people and say, hey, I'm in Parliament. Can you meet with me for 5 or 10 minutes? And we sit down and we have a coffee, or I race into their offices now. We've now got a lot of support within the political ranks that now understand that there is a pretty major problem here with missing persons, but how are we going to navigate that space respectfully and without trying to put on the criticism to the police, because the police are doing the utmost best that they can do. But their hands are also tied. So we also have to provide them with resources. We all need to provide them with assistance. So it's been a very tough road to navigate that hey, we've got these problems, but then how do we find the solutions? And that's where we've been working very diligently. We held the first ever National Missing Persons Symposium in 2023, where we brought the families together that helped us design the solutions to the problems. In 2024. But that's allowed us a big step forward to help find the solutions to a lot of these problems.
Yeah, you're so right. And I think we're very lucky to have you as such a driving force with, you know, a bit of experience of like actually being in there, going in there and having the confidence to do so. Because I think a lot of the time people are like, well, they're not going to listen to just me, but it's not just one person, it's so many people. And I always say to a lot of the families that we work with that you are going to be humbled by the amount of people in the community willing to back you and be there for you and support you. And I stand by that because we do have so many good people like across the country who are willing to fight for it. And it's just getting it out there and making it happen, like you said, which is so important. So thank you so much for
Yeah.
chatting with us and doing what you're doing. Like it's awesome. And I can't wait to see how it progresses. And hopefully it's, you know, this inquiry is a big one in the right direction.
Well, hopefully you can help us push, because submissions are still open until the 30th of this month
Awesome. Yeah.
for missing persons here in New South Wales. And look, together we can all come together and let's get the inquiry happening here in New South Wales that needs to happen. Let's get the voices out there. Let's give the families a voice, especially those in New South Wales at the moment. That's not saying that, you know, these other states aren't relevant. Far from it. This is just the start of the ripple effect that will go right across the country. That hopefully we don't need to have the inquiries in each state and territory. Hopefully they will learn from what happens here in New South Wales and they will take upon the recommendations to do it themselves. And I'm sure that will eventually happen. But together, I'm sure if we come together as one community, because just because it's your missing loved one, you're a part of a family, and that's why we try to say to our missing loved ones that we work for is you're part of our family now. No matter what, we will be there through thick and thin, whether or not we found that person or not. You're part of that family. So we work together and we're their voice.
Absolutely. I love that. That's it's so true though, because like I said, yeah, the community that comes with, all the work that you're doing and all the work that there's so many, organizations across the country that are like, we're willing, and if it starts in New South Wales, it's got to start somewhere. So it'll get recognized, I think.
Yeah, they tried to say no to me in Parliament, but I just kept going back and knocking on the door and knocking on the door until I got sick of seeing in my face and just going, "What do you want, Chris?"
Yeah.
So now we are now on first name basis, and I'm not going to stop until these families get what they so rightly deserve.
That's great. No, that's so good. And they're so lucky. We're also lucky. Like I said, you've been kind of pushing in the right direction for so long. So thank you so much for making time. I also know that it's the time zone and it's a bit later there. So I really appreciate it. And I know that you're probably going to get an influx of lots of new questions and things like that. But and a lot of new support as well towards the inquiry and what you're doing, which is awesome.
And look, Asher, if there's anything you ever need from any of your cases, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'll do what we can.
I absolutely will do that. I will be in touch with you. But thank you so much, Chris. Have a great night.
You're most welcome. Take care.
See ya.
Bye.